Penguins versus Flames. Time for round two of the Pittsburgh Penguins versus the Calgary Flames. Speaking of round two of Crosby versus McDavid and Stu Skinner versus Tristan Jarry. Preparation time on this edition of Penguins Postgame starts right now. Welcome to Sports for Beginners. This is the show where I cover the Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Blue Jays, and take you on a journey through the world of sports. From the fans' perspective, here is your host, Scott McGregor. Let's have some fun. How's it going, Pens fans? Welcome to Penguins Postgame. I'm your host, Scott, for the program, and we are getting you ready for round two between the Edmonton Oilers and the Pittsburgh Penguins as they battle each other tonight. But we can't set the stage for that game until we recap this game on Wednesday night from the Scotiabank Saddledome in Calgary. So we have a lot to get to as we prepare to get ready for the game against the Edmonton Oilers tonight from the Edmonton side of Alberta, which comes our way tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's get right down to business by looking at the team records heading into this game on Wednesday night, as well as the head coaches, the officiating crew, and before we take our first break of the program, we will go between the pipes and take a look at the matchup in goal. This series with the Calgary Flames began in the new year, as the Penguins had yet to face the Calgary Flames, and they did battle on January 10th, 2026 in Pittsburgh, where the Calgary Flames and the Pittsburgh Penguins went into a close game. Calgary ultimately ended up winning the game 2-1 on January 10th, 2026. And now we fast forward to the game at the Scotiabank Saddledome as the Penguins continued a 4-game road trip, with game 2 of the 4-game road trip starting on Wednesday night, in which the Penguins have defeated the Calgary Flames 4-1 to get even in the series against Flames head coach Ryan Huska. The Calgary Flames entered this game with a record of 21, 23, and 5. The Pittsburgh Penguins entering the game with a record 23, 14, and 11. Coming off of their latest victory over the Seattle Kraken on Monday night, after falling in the shootout 4-3 at the hands of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Meanwhile, for the Calgary Flames, Calgary comes into this one under head coach Ryan Huska, following a 2-1 loss in overtime to the New Jersey Devils on Monday night. They started off a 5-game homestand with a 4-2 victory last Saturday, January 17th, against the New York Islanders of 4-2. That was the victory for Calgary. They lost in overtime 2-1 to the New Jersey Devils before losing to Pittsburgh in the finale of this series between Pittsburgh and Calgary 4-1. Who else will they face on their homestand? Find out later in our show. Speaking of that, let's get right down to business. It's Ryan Huska versus Dan Muse as our head coaching matchup. As this is a back-to-back, it would not shock me if Arturs Sliovs for the Pittsburgh Penguins would get the start tonight against the Oilers in Edmonton at Rogers Place. But the goaltender to get the start for the Pittsburgh Penguins as we go into our goaltending matchup, going between the pipes now, the Penguins would send Stuart Skinner to the goal net to go between the pipes, and he would face Dustin Wolf. So Arturs Sliovs and Devin Cooley picking up the backup duty if needed for this hockey game on Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Mountain, 6:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Central, 2:30 in the UK in the morning, 3:30 a.m. in France as well as Sweden. The game started 8 minutes after 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Mountain, 8:30 p.m. Central, 6:30 p.m. Pacific, 2:30 a.m. UK time, 3:30 a.m. France and Sweden time. And last but certainly not least, before we go to our first break, the officiating crew on Wednesday night was, in terms of referees, wearing the number 34, Brandon Schrader, and number 17, worn by Frederick Lee Equire, what we call in the women's game the lines person. We call them in the men's game linesmen, and those people were number 93, were worn by Killian McNamara, and number 90, worn by Travis Tomey. If I pronounced anyone's name wrong, especially officiating crew wrong, I apologize. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we will take our first break of the program. When we get back, we dive into Penguins versus Flames, round 2. And one can tell you that there were not many penalties called here in this game. We'll get to who got called for a penalty, who scored goals, the shots on goal, and the game totals when we continue on Penguins postgame, getting you set up for the Oilers versus the Penguins, as well as who's next for Calgary, which you'll find out about later in our show. Don't go anywhere. Penguins postgame continues shortly after this. Don't go anywhere. There's more great conversations and content right around the corner. Sports for Beginners will be right back in a moment.
CNT Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on CNT Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on CNT Radio.
Hi, Scott. It's Ali here. I just wanted to mention that I'm really enjoying the show and I'm really enjoying what you're putting together. And I wanted to just say I'm enjoying being a part of it as well. So please keep up the phenomenal work and make sure you guys keep this podcast going because it really suits you well.
Take another look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo. Two powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
Now, let's take you back to the action. To the rink and field we go. We find Scott McGregor.
It continues on Penguins postgame, Penguins and the Flames. My name is Scott. Welcome back to the program, Penguins fans. Welcome in, Flame fans. And for those who are fans of the Edmonton Oilers, welcome aboard. Glad you're with us. Oilers coming up next for the Pittsburgh Penguins. But first, we gotta break down the hockey game from Wednesday night. And speaking of which, let's do that right now. As usual, we start in the first period of play. It is time to break down this game as it was the second of two meetings between Pittsburgh and Calgary from the Scotiabank Saddledome. The first game took place inside PPG Paints Arena back on January the 10th. 2026. And with that said, this one took place inside the Scotiabank Saddledome. Calgary won the game in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh wins the game in Calgary. But how did they do so? Well, Pittsburgh scored first to kick things off. Gino Machino, Evgeny Malkin picks up his 11th goal of the season to start the scoring at the 7-minute 49-second mark of the first period of play. Ryan Shea picks up his 15th assist of the season as well. Jack St. Ivany picks up assist number 4 on the year. Before the Penguins did open the scoring, with Gino breaking the ice, however, Calgary was assessed a 2-minute minor for hooking. That went to Ryan Lumberg, able to draw the penalty on Ryan Lumberg, I should say, at 2 minutes and 29 seconds. Gino answers a couple minutes later, I should say, with Pittsburgh's only goal of the first period, his 11th goal of the season. Ryan Shea picks up assist number 15 on the year. Jack St. Ivany picking up assist number 4 of the year. 1-0 Penguins heading into the first intermission, in which the Pittsburgh Penguins outshot Calgary 11-5 at the end of one period of play. The period came to an end at 7:16 p.m. Mountain Time, 9:16 p.m. Central Time, 10:16 p.m. Eastern Time, 8:16 p.m. Pacific Time. Was that right? Maybe I misdid that. We'll figure that out. But anyways, moving on. The first period I do know began at 38 minutes after 7 p.m. Mountain Time. But nevertheless, Gino scored at 7:49 in the first period. The penalty occurred at 2:29 of the first period, which went to Lumberg for hooking. Let's see, when did the first period end? Yes, 8:16 p.m. Mountain Time was the end time in Calgary of the first period. But that's okay. We don't need to worry about that. I'm not going to worry about the times for the rest of the periods. But anyways, moving on. Pittsburgh leading the shots 11-5 after a period of play. They would be outshot 9-8 by Calgary in the second period. But the Penguins still leading in the shots on goal after 40 minutes of play, 19-14. In this period, the second period, it was Pittsburgh and Calgary trading goals as Egor Chinakhov strikes again. His 4th goal as a Pittsburgh Penguin, 7th goal of the season, puts Pittsburgh up 2-0. Tommy Novak on the assist. Tommy Novak had a pretty good night. 17th assist of the season for him. Evgeny Malkin. We mentioned Malkin already has a goal on the game. He picks up an assist on the Egor Chinakhov goal, his 26th of the season, at 12 minutes and 32 seconds. Although there were no penalties called in the second period of play, the Calgary Flames get one back as Egor Shangarovich gets the puck by Stuart Skinner to cut into the Penguins' 2-goal lead and give it a 1-goal lead heading to the final 20 minutes of play. His 11th goal of the season, Egor Sharanovich, 11th goal of the season. Zach Whitecloud with his 6th assist of the season. And Kevin B with his 9th assist of the season. And this goal came right before the second period ended. Time of the goal, 19 minutes, 57 seconds. Right before the second period ended, which ultimately would have meant it would have been 2-0 Penguins heading into the third. Instead, it's 2-1 Penguins heading into the third. Penguins leading in the shots on goal after 40, 19-14, despite being outshot 9-8 for the period. Third period, here we go. Only one penalty called here in the third. That went to Tommy Novak, a 2-minute minor for tripping. 1 minute and 4 seconds into the game's third period. Shortly right before that, Brian Rust, Sidney Crosby, and Ricard Raquel combined for a goal. Brian Rust scores 18th goal of the year for Rusty. as he puts the Penguins up 3-1. Sidney Crosby picking up assist number 30 on the season. Rickard Rakell picking up assist number 13 on the season. 50 seconds into the third period of play, the Penguins would score again, but not till the 9-minute, 19-second mark of the third period. And this time the goal went to Tommy Novak. Novak with the goal after taking a penalty at 1 minute and 4 seconds into the third for tripping. Scores his 9th goal of the season. Jack St. Ivany with his 5th assist of the season, 2nd assist of the night. That ultimately made it 4-1 Penguins before the game came to an end. Shots on goal for the period in the third period, 6-5 in favor of the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins outshot the Calgary Flames 25-19 as a result. And we'll get to the other stats quickly here before we go to our 3 stars of the game. And then we'll take another quick break. As we remind you, we are getting you set up for the Penguins and the Oilers. I think it will be Arturs Sliovs against the Oilers, but we will see. Tristan Jarry start for the Oilers. We could see him start for the Oilers, but we'll talk about that just a little bit later in our show. All right, more from the stats. Here we go. So as we mentioned, Pittsburgh outshot Calgary 25-19. The game itself saw 55 faceoffs, Pittsburgh winning 24 out of 55, Calgary winning 31 out of the 55 faceoffs, Calgary winning just under 57% of their faceoffs, ending with a 56.4% faceoff percentage. Pittsburgh, just about 44% in the faceoffs were won by them. They finished with 43.6% in the faceoff. Again, Calgary won 31 out of 55 faceoffs. Pittsburgh winning 24 out of 55. Both penalty kills on their only opportunity of the game connected. Pittsburgh goes 1 for 1 on the penalty kill. Calgary also 1 for 1 on the penalty kill. And as a result, the Pittsburgh Penguins go 0 for 1 on the power play. And the Calgary Flames also go 0 for 1 on the power play. Penalty minutes, all even at 2 minutes to a side. 2 minutes in the box for the Pittsburgh Penguins, 2 minutes in the box for the Calgary Flames. Calgary out-hit Pittsburgh, however, 24-17. Pittsburgh got the upper hand in the blocked shots category as Calgary finishes with 11 blocked shots. Pittsburgh finishing with 17 blocked shots in this game. 16 giveaways to a side. 16 giveaways for the Calgary Flames. 16 giveaways recorded by Pittsburgh in this one. Pittsburgh with a 6-3 lead in the takeaways, finishing with 6. Calgary finishing with 3 takeaways in this one. Out for this game before we get to the 3 stars of the game. Calgary without Jonathan Huberdeau and Braden Peschel. Apologies, Braden, if I pronounced your last name wrong. Pittsburgh Penguins without Kevin Hayes, Christopher Letang, and new guy they acquired from the Colorado Avalanche. Apologies if I pronounced the name wrong. I heard the pronunciation during your welcome interview to Pittsburgh, but apologies if I pronounced the name wrong. Ilya Sololov. If I pronounced the name wrong, I apologize to Ilya if I pronounced it wrong. Sincerest apologies. All right, time now for a quick break. When we come back, we will get to the 3 stars of the game of this 4-1 Penguins victory over the Calgary Flames, plus dive into a little Wednesday roundup from the action on the ice and the play of the game. So be sure to stick with us for that. 3 stars, Wednesday roundup, and the play of the game are up next. Also coming up on our show, who's next for the Calgary Flames? Who's next for the Pittsburgh Penguins? We mentioned one of those teams that we're going to be getting you set up for as the puck drops tonight on Pittsburgh and Edmonton at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Maybe sometime just after 9 p.m. Eastern, but we will see how long it takes before the puck drops. And we'll be back with you tomorrow to break that game down as we get ready for the Vancouver Canucks on Sunday. But with that said, you'll find out who's next following those games, both for Calgary and Pittsburgh, a little later in the show. Shake of the game and the game puck of the game also still. But when we return, 3 stars of the game, play of the game, and Wednesday roundup. So folks, be sure to stick with me. Don't go anywhere. There's more great conversations and content right around the corner. Sports for Beginners will be right back in a moment.
Take another look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo. 2 powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
Hey everyone, it's Scott McGregor here. Join me weekly right here on Sports for Beginners for weekly episodes, your weekly dive in around sports news surrounding the Toronto Blue Jays, Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Raptors, and more. We'll have guests on a week-to-week basis and so much more. Lots of great conversations coming. Be sure to subscribe to our show so you never miss an episode. And with that, make sure to like our Facebook page, Sports for Beginners Podcast 87. Just type that into your browser, and you should be sure to find our Facebook page. We'll also provide bonus content. It's going to be a dull moment you'll never want to miss. Check out Sports for Beginners with me weekly for daily news around the sports league, surrounding my favorite sports teams and yours, and so much more. Until then, we'll see you at action time.
I wonder if I could make it. It's almost getting to 8 o'clock p.m., and I am still a few more steps away from home to get to my computer to listen to CNT Radio's Cosmopolitan Culture Club. The best of the best music from around the world. Can't wait. I think I made it. CNT Radio, making your day brighter, one song at a time. Now, let's take you back to the action. To the rink and field we go. We find Scott McGregor.
Welcome back to Penguins Postgame, Penguins and the Calgary Flames. On Penguins Postgame, we're getting you ready for the Penguins and the Oilers, set to drop the puck at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, which is about 5 hours and 32 minutes away from now. The pregame show on the Penguins radio network starts in about 4 hours and 31 minutes and 50 seconds from now. As we also want to count down to puck drop, that is also happening at in about 5 hours, 31 minutes from now. 4 hours and 31 minutes till pregame, 5 hours and 31 minutes now till puck drop between the Penguins and the Oilers. But all that being said, we still have a lot to get to here on Penguins postgame. Before we get to the 3 stars of the game and the play of the game, let's kick off this segment by going through our Saturday roundup. There were 6 games on the slate. A few of them went into the extra frames, and that is where we are going to start. First up, we go to Colorado, where the Anaheim Ducks defeated the Colorado Avalanche 2-1 in a shootout. The Utah Mammoth managed to pull off a comeback upset against the Philadelphia Flyers, beating the Flyers 5-4 in overtime. Speaking of comebacks, 2 goals scored in the first period, but in the end, it was Dylan Larkin who said good night from Toronto as the Red Wings they beat the Toronto Maple Leafs 2-1 in overtime. One of the 4-1 finals that, like our game, ended in regulation was the Seattle Kraken beating the New York Islanders 4-1. Anthony Duclair with the only Islanders goal, his 12th of the season. Matty Beniers, Vince Dunn, former New York Ranger Capo Caco, and former Penguin Jared McCann with the goals for the Kraken. And last but certainly not least, the Vancouver Canucks, who will see the Pittsburgh Penguins on Sunday in Vancouver, defeated the Washington Capitals 4-3 with Dylan Strome picking up 2 goals in the Capitals' 4-3 loss to Vancouver in Vancouver. Reminder, the Vancouver Canucks and the Pittsburgh Penguins will be battling each other on Sunday, January 25th, 2026. And we'll talk about on the Edmonton show the last time the Oilers and the Canucks met the Penguins over the course of that Edmonton Oilers show. By the way, this was the first time that Edmonton and Pittsburgh met was after the Tristan Jarry trade that involved Stuart Skinner and Brett Kulak traded Tristan Jarry to the Edmonton Oilers. We'll talk about that on the Oilers recap. But back to Calgary and Pittsburgh. It is time for the 3 stars of the game. They are brought to you by on the Penguins Radio Network and Calgary Flames Radio and TV Network sponsor. But we'll get to it, the play of the game, in just a moment. Let's get to our 3 stars. And if you have a difference in opinion in these 3 stars of the game, let us know by sending an email to sportsforbeginnerspodcast8231@gmail.com. Again, that's sportsforbeginnerspodcast80, or connect with us on Discord or through WhatsApp. Better to do it during the game and near the end of the game, because you never know if they could be in the minds of the host, which is yours truly, Scott McGregor here, running it with you on this show. But enough about that. 3rd star of the game in the 4-1 victory for the Pittsburgh Penguins over the Calgary Flames in Calgary was Penguins defenseman Jack St. Ivany. 2-point night, 2 assists, no goals. The 2nd star went to Pittsburgh forward number 18, Tommy Novak. Also a 2-point night for him. 1 goal, 1 assist. And the 1st star might have been number 71 in your program on Wednesday night, but at the end of the night for Penguins fans, he's number 1 in your heart. With a 2-point night, a goal, and an assist, Evgeny Malkin is your Evgeny Malkin, Tommy Novak, and Jack St. Ivany are your 3 stars of this game. But I do think, if I was to split it, I do think Egor Shengerovich deserves some flowers here for the Calgary Flames. Same thing as I think Dustin Wolf deserves some flowers here. He was absolutely, at least from the time I was listening to it, because I had to cut out during the timeline here on the East Coast. I had to cut out before the 3rd period began, but I waited till the end of the 2nd period to cut out. Of course, by that time, before the Egor Shengerovich goal, Pittsburgh was still up And of course, there hadn't been any penalties called. But I still feel like both Dustin Wolf and Stuart Skinner did pretty well in this contest. Evidently, it ends in good fashion for Stuart Skinner. He gets another win as a Pittsburgh Penguin. A great win, by the way. And I like the agility the Penguins were able to get out there, especially when they score first. All right, time now for the play of the game. And what's good enough for my play of the game? I got to take you back to late in the period of the second period. I didn't see how the goal happened, but this was the goal that put Pittsburgh on notice and also cut into their lead. The goal by Egor Shangarovich is good enough for my play of the game. Of course, it was Brian Rust who scored on the wraparound shot 50 seconds into the third period to give Pittsburgh a 3-1 lead. They ultimately end up winning this one 4-1 after Tommy Novak beat Dustin Wolf on the backhand side to make it 4-1 Pittsburgh. All right, we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's time for the shake of the game. What's next for Pittsburgh, followed by the game puck of the game, and then what's next for Calgary. Plus, before we get into the shake of the game and what's next for the two teams, we'll talk about the series in general. I'll give you some of my thoughts on it. Despite the fact that during both of these games, there was no Tristan Jarry because the Penguins traded him the night they played against Montreal. Well, the night after they played Montreal and won, by the way. This was not after a loss. It was after a win for Tristan Jarry and the Penguins to get Stu Skinner and Brett Kulak. We'll talk about that when Penguins postgame continues. So be sure to stick with us. The shake of the game, game puck of the game, setting the scene for Calgary and Pittsburgh, as well as the season series in a nutshell, and the Thursday preview of action in the NHL coming up on Penguins postgame when we return. Stick with us. Don't go anywhere. There's more great conversations and content right around the corner. Sports for Beginners will be right back in a moment. Hey Pens fans, this is Scott McGregor, host of Sports for Beginners, On the Ice and Behind the Benches, and co-host of On the Ice and Behind the Benches, host of also Weekly in Sports, and many of the other programs on Sports for Beginners. Join me every week after select Penguins hockey games over the course of the week for Penguins Weekly Recap, a new kind of show airing weekly on Sports for Beginners. Next season, we wanted to try and do it this year, but we'll do it next season. That's Penguins Weekly Recap, coming soon to Sports for Beginners, the podcast. You won't want to miss it. See you there, Penguin fans.
CNT Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on CNT Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on CNT Radio.
Now, let's take you back to the action. To the rink and field we go. We find Scott McGregor.
Welcome back to Penguins postgame. Penguins and the Calgary Flames, the topic of conversation. we are just about ready for the shake of the game and the game puck of the game. And it is also time to give you a look at our Thursday night of hockey, including the Penguins and the Oilers, which we are getting you set up for. So we are coming to the end of our Flames recap. Thank you for joining us for this show. We really appreciate that you joining us up here. But just before we go, I'd like to give my overall thoughts on this series before we go any further into our game puck of the game and our shake of the game, which are coming up in a few short moments. So, first of all, was that game on January a good game by Pittsburgh despite losing 2-1? To me, yes. To some of you, maybe not. But look, the bottom line here is if we look back at that game on January 10th, if we look back at that game, we weren't facing Dustin Wolf. We were facing Devin Cooley. By the way, the Penguins were on a 6-game winning streak at that point in time. So winning streaks will come and they will go. But it would have been really nice, especially against Calgary, to first of all continue Calgary's 4-game skid into a 5-game skid, but we couldn't do that. But the reason that I like this is because the same guy that scored in this game in the 4-1 victory scored in the game where we saw goals from Connor Zary and Matt Coronado, which were ultimately enough to beat the Pittsburgh Penguins. And the other difference in this game between last night's contest against Calgary and the contest on the 10th of January, we had more penalties in the January 10th game than we did in this one. In this one, we had 1 penalty each to a squad. Plus, if I were to go any further, we didn't have penalties coming up at the 20-minute mark, at the end of the period mark, I should say, like we did in the January 10th game, where the penalties came at 20 minutes to Parker Witherspoon and Rasmus Andersson. By the way, Rasmus Andersson was not in this game for Calgary. He was in the game on Saturday, but he did not play for Calgary in this game. But let me double check to make sure. Did he play? I don't think he did. No, he did not. And it looks like he could be traded, but I don't know. We will see what happens with that man. Anywho, those are my overall thoughts on the series. I like that it ended in a tie, but I would have preferred it be a 2-0 Pittsburgh win in the season series, with Pittsburgh winning that game in Pittsburgh over Calgary, but they didn't do so. The only guy that did score, however, also scored in Pittsburgh's 4-1 victory in Calgary, which was last night. And he is where we are going to start our shake of the game as we get into it now. The Pittsburgh Penguins shake of the game from Wednesday night is going to go to Egor Chinakhov. Once again, he dazzles and scores against the Calgary Flames. Picked up a +3 and had 2 shots on goal, one of which was stopped by Dustin Wolf, and the other went by Dustin for a Pittsburgh goal, one of Pittsburgh's 4 goals. Honorable mention to the goaltender, Stuart Skinner, who made 18 saves off of 19 shots. He gave up the 1 goal to Egor Shangarovich, but finished the game with a save percentage of .947 and finishing off the hockey game, playing a total of 60 minutes. He's looking pretty comfortable right now in the crease for Pittsburgh. Stuart is. He's looking pretty comfortable. For the Calgary Flames, their shake of the game is going to go to puck stopper Dustin Wolf. Dustin gave up 4 goals in this game, both at even strength, but he still had a pretty good night in goal, facing 25 shots and making 21 saves. He also finished the game at 60 minutes total on the ice, but he also finishes the game with a save percentage 840. And I thought Dustin played pretty well, even for the little bit that I was listening to on the Penguins radio network, which, as you've heard on Pittsburgh Penguins radio 105.9, is presented by S&T Bank, a founding partner of the Penguins radio network. The game puck of the game for Pittsburgh is going to go to the puck stopper, Stuart Skinner. And for Calgary, game puck of the game goes to the goal scorer, Egor Shangarovich. 1 goal, 1 point, no assists. He had 3 shots on Stuart Skinner. Stuart stopped 2 of them, but one of those 3 shots from Egor went by him. So on the Calgary Flames side, the game puck of the game goes to Egor Shangarovich. The shake of the game goes to the puck stopper, Dustin Wolf. Game puck of the game going to Stuart Skinner for Pittsburgh. And the shake of the game going to Egor Chinakhov. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, as we approach the 4 p.m. slate of Eastern Time. We are just about ready to wrap this one up. Before we do and get you ready for Penguins and the Oilers, and before we go to this game was on Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. It finished at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Mountain Time, I should say, 12:02 in the morning Eastern Time, 11:02 p.m. in the Central Time Zone. In the Pacific Time Zone, 9:02 p.m. Pacific, 10:02 p.m. Mountain, 5:02 p.m. in the UK, 6:02 p.m. France and Sweden, and records coming out of this game in front of 17,997 fans in attendance at the Scotiabank Saddledome in Calgary, Alberta. The Pittsburgh Penguins will enter Rogers Place with a record 24, 14, and 11. The Calgary Flames will enter their next showdown with a record 21, 24, and 5 for Calgary. With that said, here's what the Thursday slate looks like for Pittsburgh's game against the Oilers, which is at 9 p.m. Eastern. We start at 7 p.m. Eastern with the Vegas Golden Knights taking on the Boston Bruins at 7 p.m. Eastern. Also at that time slot, the Buffalo Sabres are visiting the Montreal Canadiens. The Carolina Hurricanes are hosting the Chicago Blackhawks. And the Columbus Blue Jackets are hosting the Dallas Stars at 8 p.m. Eastern. The Ottawa Senators are in Nashville to take on the Nashville Predators, and the Florida Panthers pay a visit to Winnipeg to take on the Winnipeg Jets. And following Oilers and Penguins at 9 p.m., 30 minutes after 9 p.m., to close out the slate, it's the Detroit Red Wings versus the Minnesota Wild. That game at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 8:30 p.m. Central. Pittsburgh is at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Mountain Time. So, folks, what's next for the Pittsburgh Penguins? Well, their 4-game road trip continues now that they're down to the final 2 games of the road trip as they battle the Edmonton Oilers tonight from Edmonton at Rogers Place. They will then be in action after a night off on Friday and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern against the Vancouver Canucks, before coming home for a 3-game homestand that will kick off on Thursday, January 29th. That's next Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, as the Pittsburgh Penguins and Sidney Crosby host the Chicago Blackhawks from Pittsburgh. Then Metro Division showdowns galore, well, at least for the end of January, as they will face off against former head coach Mike Sullivan, if he remains the head coach long enough till that game, against the New York Rangers. Afternoon matinee start time at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on Saturday, January 1st, 2026. And the 3-game road trip wraps up with the Ottawa Senators coming into town before the Penguins go on a 2-game road trip before the Olympic break. Ottawa Senators will be in town on February 2nd, 2026. Puck drops at 7 p.m. Eastern. So you've got Edmonton tonight, Vancouver Sunday night, Chicago next Thursday night, New York next Saturday night, January 31st, 2026. Next Saturday afternoon, I should say, on January 30th, 2026, January 31st, 2026. To round it out, The Penguins will host the Ottawa Senators on Monday, February 2nd, 2026, before a road trip goes to Long Island, New York against the New York Islanders, and then to Buffalo, New York for a showdown with the Buffalo Sabres. Here's the schedule, however, for the Calgary Flames now. Penguins are off their schedule, so here's who they will face next. They're back in action tomorrow night as they host the Washington Capitals at 9 p.m. Eastern, continuing their 5 game homestand with Game 4 of the 5 games tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern against the Capitals. They will then battle the Anaheim Ducks at 8 p.m. Eastern on Sunday from Calgary to wrap up that 5 game homestand. They go to Minneapolis, Minnesota for a showdown with the Wild on Thursday next week at 8 p.m. Eastern. Then it's a late afternoon matinee to kick off a 3 game homestand for Calgary to end the month of January and go into the month of February as the Flames take on the San Jose Sharks. To open that up, puck drops at 4 p.m. Eastern. And then on February 2nd, 2026, it's night owl action on the East Coast as the Calgary Flames continued their 3 game homestand, hosting Austin Matthews and the Toronto Maple Leafs. So they get Washington this Friday, Anaheim this Sunday. Next Thursday, they're in Minnesota. Next Saturday, they're in San Jose. They're hosting San Jose, And then on Monday at 10 p.m. Eastern, they host the Toronto Maple Leafs. So you got Washington, Anaheim, Minnesota, San Jose, and Toronto coming up for the Calgary Flames before it's time for another Battle of Alberta between the Edmonton Oilers and the Calgary Flames. All right, folks, that is just about going to do it for us here today on the show. Thank you so much for being with us. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Let's go, Pens. Ladies and gentlemen, Justin Brazeau has just left the building. I'm Scott McGregor saying Penguins win 4-1 over the Calgary Flames. They get even in the season series. Now they look to get even against Connor McDavid and the Oilers later tonight. We'll catch up with you tomorrow to break down the game, discuss what happened on December 16th, and so much more. Penguins and Oilers, Stu Skinner versus Tristan Jarry, round 2, Pens and the Oilers, and round 2, Crosby versus McDavid for 2025-2026 starts next time on Penguins Postgame. Hope to see you there. But for now, I'm Scott McGregor saying Penguins win 4-1 over the Calgary Flames. Enjoy the hockey game, and I'll talk to you on Friday after Penguins and Oilers. Enjoy the game, everybody. Peace, and let's go Pens. Thank you so much for listening to Sports for Beginners. If you would like to learn more about the show, you can visit the podcast Facebook page or visit the official website. You can also send us an email at sportsforbeginnerspodcast8231@gmail.com. As we always remind you, it is not goodbye, it is until next time.